How it all began. The story of how Rochester, New York and Veliki Novgorod, Russia became connected. My name is Dick Fitz. Did you ever wonder how Rochester and Novgorod became connected rather than, say, Rochester with Minsk or Novgorod with Detroit? It all started back in the early 1980s. Many Americans had genuine concern that an all-out nuclear war could erupt between the U.S. and the then Soviet Union. Endless discussions in America on nuclear disarmament always led to the question, yes, but what about the Russians? There was no way for ordinary Americans and Russians to get to know one another. In Rochester, an ordinary citizen with no political connection, Nancy Eckerson Fitz, saw an article in the magazine Nuclear Times in which the author opted to pair American cities with then Soviet cities. Feeling that this could be a way to start the communications on a people-to-people level, she contacted the magazine and asked for the name of a city to be paired with Rochester, New York. She was sent the name Novgorod. The assignment of city names did not involve any unit of government, U.S. or Soviet. It was simply the work of one man, Professor Earl Molander, at Portland State University in Portland, Oregon. He would later become known for establishing the MBA program, RASBA, at Novgorod State University. Later we learned how Earl Molander chose the Soviet city names to assign when people requested one. He looked at the geographical distribution of the population of the Soviet Union, concentrated along their western border, as a mirror image to the population in the United States, concentrated along the Atlantic seaboard. He selected cities comparable in size and general geographical location. Archangel was assigned to Portland, Maine. Kalinin Tver was assigned to Buffalo, Borovichi to Binghamton, etc. All in all, Earl Molander paired over 60 U.S. and Soviet cities. Whether by chance or by choice, the match of Novgorod and Rochester has proved to be excellent. Similar in size, both cities are recognized as centers of learning, and both have rivers running through them. But how do you make contact so far away, especially when both nations were very suspicious of each other? A journalist with city newspaper in Rochester, Mark Hare, heard of the effort and offered to help gather a community portrait of material describing Rochester and send it to Novgorod as a way of getting acquainted. Mark gathered letters from ordinary citizens, descriptive material from the Chamber of Commerce, children's artwork, and with the help of City Council member Joan Hensler, invited other City Council members to write a letter of greeting to their counterparts on the Novgorod City Council. Mark packaged all the material and in December 1983 mailed it to the mayor of Novgorod, Russia. That's all the address information known, and the waiting began. Because of the tension between our two nations and the lack of any real encouragement by either government for such activity, it was not surprising that no response occurred for over 1 year. Not easily discouraged, a Rochester couple, David and Miriam Thomas, decided to organize a trip to the then Soviet Union, hoping to be able to visit Novgorod. 28 people signed up for this trip in August 1984. After much effort, despite resistance from the In-Tourist Travel Agency, the group was granted a stay of 1 day and a half in Novgorod. Members of Novgorod's Interclub Mir, led by Andrei Kolodin, were made available to meet with the Americans. There were no meetings in homes. Here they are visiting the Museum of Wooden Architecture. In December 1984, a year following the mailing of the community portrait, the first response from Novgorod was received. Rochester City Council member Anthony Cellino received a letter in response to his from an English language translator in Novgorod, Valery Zelenin. From this start, hundreds of pairs of pen pals have been in contact. Valery Zelenin and Anthony became good friends. Anthony and his wife were hosted by Valery and his wife in Novgorod. Anthony and his wife hosted Valerie in Rochester and assisted Valerie's daughter Ina in enrolling at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester. Encouraged that people-to-people connections could be made, the organization Linkages was formed in April 1985. Educational meetings have been held, and a newsletter has been published continually ever since. The design for the Linkages letterhead combines the profile of buildings in both of our cities. Here they are greeted at the Novgorod Railroad Station. Is Irina Kucharian with a stroller with her youngster, Sasha Kochevnik and the tour group, and the Miri Druzhba, peace and friendship sign. The first Linkages-sponsored tour was made by 23 Rochesterians in July 1987. Excitement was high as ordinary citizens from each country met for the very first time at the Novgorod train station. We all knew that this was a special moment when individuals, previously separated by almost insurmountable barriers, were able to meet in a Russian home and to make plans for further exchanges. This was a scene in the apartment of Andrei Kolodin, where members of Novgorod's interclub Mir met with Linkages members. Little could we have imagined that this was the start of over 20 years of exchanges of students and adults, individuals and groups, who have visited and studied in each other's cities. Many Rochesterians wanted to be part of this historic first visit, but couldn't go. They sent instead their own personal greeting in the form of a friendship quilt. Over 20 women in Rochester each sewed squares of cloth embroidered with the image of something that was important in their lives that they wanted to share with their new unknown Russian friends. Here they are presenting the quilt to Interclub as a symbol of friendship. A teacher of English in Novgorod is shown being presented with a souvenir of Rochester. Little did we know that some years later this same person, Lisa Svetkova, would be teaching in Rochester and be known as Lisa Stefan. Visits to hospitals and other aspects of life in Novgorod were offered, enabling people with common interests to get acquainted and to exchange information. There was nothing official in this first visit, but the mayor of Novgorod, Alexander Grigoriev, extended the courtesy of meeting with us and learning who this group of Americans were and why they had come. It was all very formal, but years later, the official exchanges were friendly and relaxed on both sides. The first person from Novgorod to visit Rochester was a photojournalist, Alexander Kochevnik. With his own funds, he journeyed to Rochester in February 1988 and brought an extensive display of photographs to acquaint Rochesterians with the beauty of Novgorod. His photographic display gave increased visibility to our new paired city, and shortly afterwards, Rochester Mayor Thomas Ryan welcomed Novgorod Mayor Alexander Buzin for the first official visit. In March 1989, a branch of the USSR-USA Society was formed in Novgorod with Nikolai Voronkov as its first president. With this organization, comparable to Linkages, it was now possible to maintain people-to-people connections on an organized, ongoing basis. In December 1989, Rochester City Council passed a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor to establish an official sister-city relationship. Planning then started for an official delegation from Rochester to go to Novgorod to sign an agreement on cooperation. In July of 1990, 32 Rochesterians, including the president of Rochester City Council, Lois Geis, shown here in Rochester City Hall, and council member Tim Maines, traveled to Novgorod for this historic event when representatives of both governments were to sign the official accord. It's time to go visit our new friends. To reach Novgorod, most first-time visitors chose to go by way of Moscow. Memory of its sights and sounds stayed with the visitors for a lifetime. Here's St. Basil's Cathedral, always a favorite to photograph. The golden towers, beautiful in day and night. But while most travelers would prefer to spend their time in the big cities, our objective was different. We wanted to establish people-to-people connection with citizens of our sister city. As we approached Novgorod, all eyes were searching for the first view of Novgorod. As the tour bus reached the city limits of Novgorod, representatives of Russian-American Friendship Society, Nikolai Voronkov and Irina Kacharian, greeted us displaying an American flag. Spontaneously, some of us got off the bus, carrying a recently acquired Soviet flag, and ran to greet them. It was an emotional moment, one never to be forgotten. It felt like we were really making history. The crowds were waiting for us in the center city, an impressive welcome. We were introduced to the Russian custom of greeting guests with bread and salt. The names of each Rochester visitor had been given in advance to a Novgorodian, and the process of trying to find each other was a great icebreaker. There was Russian dancing, and Rochester City Council member Tim Maines joined in. There were last-minute meetings for the official meetings, with the image of Vladimir Lenin looking on. I wondered what he would be thinking about our discussions. The Rochesterians were invited to the Novgorod City Council chamber for the ceremony. Irina Kacharian introduced the officials and translated the proceedings. Representatives of each government signed the official agreement. Ceremonial gifts were exchanged. The ones given to Rochester are displayed to this day in Rochester City Hall. A tree was planted in the Novgorod Kremlin in honor of the occasion. There was a huge picnic with games we'd never seen before. We were shown many historic buildings on which Novgorod is very proud. The Millennium Monument, St. Sophia's Cathedral, the Museum of Wooden Architecture. But the memories that we'll keep the longest are the faces we saw as we looked out of the bus as we left Novgorod. Strangers no longer. But this is just the start of the story. Much more could be told of the partnerships that were formed, of humanitarian aid sent, of students and teachers who exchanged visits, or businesses started, of marriages that resulted, but those are stories for another day. Let it be said that each of the many individuals mentioned here contributed to building a bridge between our two cities. The next time you think that your own actions do not count for much, remember how each of these people, Novgorodians or Rochesterians, individually and together, made a difference. That's really the message of the old fable told to Russian children on how difficult it was to remove the turnip from the ground. Each family member tried, grandfather, mother, daughter, even the dog, and then the cat, and the tiniest mouse added its energy that made it possible to harvest the turnip. Do svidaniya.